up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the DNF podcast with your girl, Crystal. And it is race week once again. And I'm so happy because I would love to forget that Australia even happened. And I told you guys, I said that I would either be crying tears of joy or tears of sadness. And I definitely cried tears of sadness because if you haven't watched, spoiler alert, if you have, then you already know Oscar Piastri did crash out and it was his home Grand Prix. And I was just like, no. And the Aussie curse lives on. He really needs to, like, whatever bad juju is there needs to be like removed. So it was so funny to see the OzGP social media cleansing it with Sage. I'm like, do what you gotta do. But anyways, you guys, like I said, it's race week and we are in China. And not only is it race week, but it is a sprint race weekend. What does that mean, Crystal? It means that instead of having 3 free practices like we normally would, we only have one. And then we will jump into sprint qualifying, which is SQ1, SQ2, SQ3. And that is on Friday. And then Saturday, we will have the sprint race, which is typically, usually, if I'm not mistaken, like half of the laps of a normal race. And then Saturday, like 2 hours later after the sprint, we will have normal qualifying. And then Sunday, we will have the race. So, with that being said, I am not going to go through each SQ because that we would be here forever. And I would try to like yap about every single decision I've made. So, I'm only going to give you my SQ3. Now, just so you can have this in the back of your mind, even though in SQ3 it is going to be the top 10 fighting for pole position, it's only the top 8 that get points in the sprint. So I know it would make more sense in my head, at least. It would make more sense to just qualify the top 8 and, go from there. But, I am not the FIA. I am not Formula One. So now, with that being said, let's jump right in to my SQ3 predictions. So I have my phone this time because I didn't write them down. And let's jump into P10. I have to say, the person I have in P10 completely took me by surprise. Actually, the team took me by surprise in Australia, and I feel like I have slept on them. So I do have to say, I'm so sorry for sleeping on you guys. But I do have Gabby Bortoleto in P10. I feel like Audi kind of went under the radar. No one really was talking about them. And he put that car into Q3. He was not able to actually put in a qualifying lap because of some sort of like electronical issue, which was a big deal during Australia. But he was also able to get points on race day, ending in P9. So very good. In P9, I do have Isaac Hadjar. I feel like he might be on the back foot just a tad bit this week, because he was the only Red Bull that did not finish. He had some reliability issues, so I don't know. I feel like maybe they're not gonna have the same configuration that they will for Max versus what they have for Isaac. In P8 was someone that I honestly enjoyed watching him race last weekend because I said it was either going to be one of two things. He was either going to underdrive or overdrive. However, I did not have him. I really can't talk. I did not have him driving to like the absolute limit. And it was a joy to watch him race. It's always a joy to watch him race because I followed him in Formula 2, but I do have Arvid Lindblad in P8. P7, I have Oscar. I feel like Oscar is going to be another one who's going to be on the back foot this weekend. Plus, McLaren not being a fast car at all. And I know that he outqualified his teammate in Australia, but I don't know. I feel like he might be driving a little bit more cautiously. I have no idea. But I do have him qualifying a little bit lower during the sprint. In P6, I do have Lando. Again, I just feel like McLaren does not have the pace to keep up with the Mercedes, Ferraris, or even the Red Bulls. So we're back to the midfield, baby. In P5, I do have Max Verstappen. I know that Isaac qualified in P3 for Australia. However, and Max crashed. That was another big thing. Max crashed out in Q1 for a software issue, which not gonna get into, but still. P4, I have Charles. Um, again, they do seem to have the pace to take it to Mercedes. Also, Ferrari's bringing the Macarena. I can't say it. The Macarena wing. Try saying that really fast. I keep trying to say ring instead of wing. Which if you're not familiar, it like literally flips instead of just like opening. It flips, and everybody's obsessed with it. Even I'm obsessed with it. So I don't know. And in P3, I do have Kimmy. I feel like Mercedes has shown their hand and we know that they're going to be quick. So, in P2, I do have Lewis. He did really well last year in the sprint. It was the only time he was on the podium. And I put that in quotations because like literally there's not a podium for a sprint, but it's the only time that he got a plaque in Ferrari was during the Chinese Grand Prix sprints. And taking pole by no surprise, it's gonna be George Russell, and it kills me to put him in P1. So it is what it is. Do I think that that's how it's gonna end up? Yes, I don't really think we're gonna see that much movement, and here's my reasoning as to why. Because it is a sprint and they know that they're going to have qualifying later that afternoon, a lot of these cars aren't going to want to take big risk in case they get into accidents and their cars are going to be ready for the actual qualifying of the race. So last year, I think it was just Oscar who overtook, and I think it was Max that he overtook, and he couldn't catch up to Lewis. But besides that, I, and this is just me like trying in my Rolodex of memories, trying to remember last year's sprint, but I don't really remember. I think Norris had qualified a bit lower too, and he made up a few positions, but uh, it was quite the same order. There wasn't like I can't remember any big changes like off the top of my head. If there was, please let me know in the comments. But that is that. Now, let's get into qualifying because I feel like my actual qualifying is going to look a little bit different to the sprint qualifying. Why? Because a lot of the times what teams will do is they will run different configurations during sprint qualifying, and then when they race with the same whatever setup, but then they can also take that information and then use that for qualifying and then the race the following day. So let's get into Q1. All right, P22, I have Lance. I mean, P21, I do have Bottas. I love the whimsy and the whimsicalness of Cadillac and how they're like, we did a race, our first race, so cute. However, they were so slow compared to obviously Mercedes, but still the gaps were really really big. So I don't think they're bringing any upgrades for China. So I do have Cadillac on the back foot. In P20, I have Fernando Alonso. He was close to making it into Q2 in Australia. And I hate to say it this way, but I was laughing during the race when they kept like bringing him in. They're like, oh, we're going to stop. And then they kept going and then they would stop and they would keep going. But I'm like, hey, you're getting race mileage and you're also getting a lot of information. So they were playing it very smart. P19, I have Franco Colapinto. I I don't think Formula 2 has ever raced in China, if I'm not mistaken. And he was not at Alpine when they raced last year. It was still Jack Doohan. So I think this is going to be a new circuit for him, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like when you're going to a newer circuit, you tend to do like a little bit worse. So I that's why I have him in P19. In P18, I do have Carlos Sainz. And it's just because He also struggled in the Australian Grand Prix. I mean, Williams struggled in the Australian Grand Prix, so they are definitely on the back foot. And ending our Q1 in P17, I do have Alex Albon. Again, it's just because Williams, if it's not an electrical issue, there's suspension issues, there's a leak. If it's not one thing, it's another. They're going to be on the back foot, I think, this weekend. Now, heading into Q2, I do have him getting into Q2 is Checo. I don't know. I feel like he's kind of driving with this, they say the Kevin Magnussen, vibe of like, I'm just here to race. I know my car is slow, but I'm gonna do what I can. And for that reason, I do have him in P16. In P15, I do have Esteban Ocon. I feel like I love his race engineer, but at the same time, I am starting to think that he might need a new one. Um, because Ollie was able to do really well last race, and he kind of, I mean, I know it was, the French Civil War part two with him and Pierre, or part whatever it is at this point, but still, like, he should have been higher up than he was. Um, because he ended in P11, and Ollie was able to be P7. In P14, I do have Pierre. Again, I don't like Alpine, and two, they also seem to be slow a little bit. P13, I do have Oliver Behrman. P12, I do have Liam Lawson. I would put him lower, but I can't because also like the car is really, it's a good car that it seems to be a good car that they have under their belt. But oh, he's like the number one hated man in Mexico, and I don't blame them because he, we're not gonna get into it. And then ending our Q2 is going to be a Gabby. So I know I have Gabby higher in the sprint, but in the actual qualifying, I do have him, missing out on Q3 by like thousandths, hundredths of a second. Now, here we go. Our top 10. In P10, I have Nico Hulkenberg. So I do have him out qualifying his teammate. But not by much. P9, again, someone who really surprised me and I really like him is Arvid. P8, I have Lando Norris. He didn't qualify really well last year. And I know he was struggling with a car last year, so I'm kind of trying to base like my information on like qualifying in Australia, how he did last year in China. And I know it's not the same car, but still. In P7, I have Isaac Hadjard. I do feel like there's a possibility that he could be higher, but I don't know. I have that vibe. In P6, I do have Oscar, and that is just me manifesting that I think that's really gonna be no, but it's my podcast and I will choose where I want to put him, and if I wanted to I would put him on pole every single time, but I'm also realistic. Okay, in P5, I do have Max Verstappen. I honestly believe that Red Bull is like the third fastest car on the grid, potentially second fastest. I feel like they could probably really fight Ferrari for that position. Do I think that they're faster than Mercedes? No, but we obviously saw their qualifying pace with Isaac in Australia. And I know that Max crashed in Q1, but that was not on him. But we also got to see what he could do starting from essentially the back of the grid. And he made up a lot of positions. So that's why I have him in P5. In P4, I do have a Lewis. I'm gonna have him missing out again by like thousands, hundreds, tenths of a second from the top three. Now, top three is I mean, you can assume, you can imagine what I who I have. Oh my goodness. Guys, I drink a Dr. Pepper, so like I don't know why I'm so jittered up, but I am. Sorry. But I have George Russell in P3. I have his teammate out qualifying him in P2 and taking pole position in China. I do have Mr. Charles Leclerc. Um, I don't know. I feel like he has like this confidence with the car. I feel like Ferrari is unlocking, hopefully they're unlocking, more speed and they're more understanding. And I know that the FIA and Formula One are working on trying to like, I don't know, better these regulations because battery management sucks. And that is not the reason why people watch Formula One. Now, how I have people qualifying is not how I have them ending. I'm not gonna go through the entire grid because we would be here all night and your girl's a little bit tired. So I'm gonna give you my top 10. In P10, I still have Nico Hulkenberg. In P9, I actually have Gabby, so I do have him making up a few positions. I do have a DNF, and I'm so sorry, Isaac. It's gonna be another DNF for you, but it's just because of reliability issues. It has nothing to do with you, Buki. In P8, I do have Liam Lawson, so another person coming up. In P7, I do have Arvid Lindblad. In P6, I have Oscar. P5, I have Lando. I think it's just going to be a stronger weekend for Lando. P4, I have Max. All right, so for my podium, I have Lewis in third, George in second, and winning the Chinese Grand Prix, I do have Charles Leclerc. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, and we could actually be having an Audi pole position and Audi win. I don't know. I have no idea because I believe some teams are bringing in upgrades. We won't know until tomorrow when they are running their first free practice and the only practice of this weekend. But yeah. Now I am going to talk a little bit about football, you guys, because we did have Champions League yesterday and today. The Barcelona Newcastle game was a really good game. I'm not gonna lie. I had no idea how it's gonna end up. I was for sure assuming we would win because I mean you always want your team to win. And then we were down one goal, and then at the last minute, I was like, oh my gosh, thank God for a penalty. So and Yamin Yamal did what he had to do, and we ended 1-1. I'm okay with that because we were playing away from home. So now we're going to Camp Nou. So hopefully, fingers crossed that we will win and move on to the next to the next place. But then we're gonna have to play Atletico de Madrid because Atletico de Madrid whooped Tottenham and we lost to Atletico. Like, can we get away? It's like Manchester City and Real Madrid. We just can't seem to get away from each other. Now, that was a game that happened today. It was 3-0 to Real Madrid. However, we were playing away from home. And like Gigi said, it's not over until it's over. So I have faith. And I mean, the saying is true, it's the hope that kills you. And yeah. um, so we shall see. I don't know. I have no idea. I swear, I feel like sometimes, and it happens in Premier League, like whenever it was a Manchester derby, it was Manchester had not been playing good. And then all of a sudden, it's like they remember that they do have good players and that they know how to play. And it's like they become prime Manchester United. Same thing with Real Madrid. They've had so many injuries and they've lost a lot of their games in La Liga. And then they come to the Champions League and then it's like they remember, like, oh, wait, we know how to play. And it's just like, great, thank you. Like such a deadpan, like, wow, fantastic. So yeah, there's that. But anyways, you guys, that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. I really do appreciate all the views. I was really excited to hit 100 views on my last episode. So thank you guys so much. I literally was screaming like a little girl, like, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really, really do appreciate it. I try to yap as quickly as I can because I know our attention spans are like but anyways, I will catch you guys next week. I probably won't do like a debrief video. Essentially, what I'll probably end up doing is what I did today, where right before we get into the predictions, I will talk about a little bit about the race, the sprint, if anything interesting happened. But I will catch you guys next week so we can catch up on everything that happened this weekend. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. See you guys later.